Yo, what's up everyone? Welcome to FATED number 131. It's Necropolis reveal time. We're gonna talk all about the reveal. As always, the show only exists thanks to your support, so if you want to purchase a paid subscription to Twitch, YouTube, or Patreon, you're gonna be shown on the end screen. And without further ado, let's go into the episode. Welcome to Balor. How are you doing today?
Hello. Fantastic. Too many videos to make. Not enough time.
True that. And with us today we have NeverSink. How's the workload on the filter this league?
Hi, quite well. We've done most of the critical stuff already, optimizing some things. I also want to make some videos and getting constantly distracted by starter choices, but otherwise doing well, thanks.
Awesome. Glad you made time to be here with us. And of course, welcome Dreamcore. How are you doing today?
I'm good, yeah. Thanks for having me on. I agree with Balor. Too many videos to make. Way too much content to do before the league start. But yeah,
Yep.
I'm glad to be here.
Well, I don't know whether it's the first time, but I think this time we actually had like a 3-week hype cycle, right? Instead of just 2 weeks. Because they already started throwing out teasers 1 week before the reveal.
Yeah,
Not sure
they
whether
did teasers better this league compared to last league. I remember the teasers last league were very weak. I think they started like 2 days before the reveal or 3 days before.
Conversely, though, we haven't had any teasers since.
True.
So
That is really odd, really, because they did have a tweet after the reveal stream where they literally said, "I wonder whether we have any teasers left." And so I was like, "Oh, they're teasing more teasers. They're continuing one every day." And then there was zero, nothing. Every day I go and I check the announcement teaser page on our official forums, and I'm disappointed that the last thing updated is the Strongbox thing.
yeah.
But well, without wanting to spend too much time on the teasers and all that, this is the first time in forever that we had a leak that is unavoidable, right?
Yeah, that's a little bit scary for me. I'm not gonna lie.
Is it?
A little bit scary in hardcore, I think.
What was the last leak that was unavoidable? Was it Betrayal?
Betrayal? Yeah.
There hasn't been a single leak after Betrayal that was like not that didn't change things.
Not that I can think of.
I'm gonna have to look at the list of leaks.
Yeah.
Wait, you're playing Hardcore Dreamcore?
Yeah.
Oh, I was not aware. I thought, since it was to me very obvious with your YouTube doing a lot of build explanations and stuff like that, that you'd be doing all of that in softcore, all of that testing.
Also, Betrayal was like before my time. I started after that, so I haven't experienced an unavoidable league just yet. So that's going to be interesting. Usually, like what happens is I completely avoid the league mechanic at league start because it's almost always totally overtuned, and you just die. That was the case in Affliction as well. I actually like misclicked Affliction once and had to just get out of there real quick at league start. But yeah, this one, although this one's a little bit different because they're basically reusing monsters that already exist, and then you're applying like modifiers to them. So if you know what's already dangerous, it's not that bad, I think. Like, for example, you don't want to put 100% damage on porcupines and just instantly die because you have like no evasion or no fizz mitigation, right?
Or rowers. It's going to be
Or
rowers.
rowers, yeah.
I was thinking the whole time leveling, I was like, oh, I'm probably not going to pick them for any zone. I'll just go with whatever they got. And then immediately I was like, except rowers. I'll be choosing in that zone to not buff rowers.
I believe while you're right, this leak is unavoidable. I also think it is potentially much less terrifying than the leaks we've seen in other times from what we've seen. So it of course depends how much of a passive buff do the monsters get from just being this sort of ghost tormented thing. I think it's called Haunted. Yeah, Haunted. But assuming it is not a huge buff, I think it's actually a very lightweight league, as in, or you can pretty much also leverage your game knowledge a lot. So if you know you're fighting against enemies with projectors, you just shift things around. At the same time, you might actually get some benefits from that, since there's going to be some positive mods as well. So I don't think we need to be too worried about this whole thing becoming lethal. I can actually imagine it becoming very dangerous, like in endgame maps. As I mentioned, they said this buff had different tiers. They had like set different higher tiers in higher areas. So I can imagine higher areas have also higher percentual buffs. So we'll see how it goes.
I think there's a good chance that it won't be too impactful because there are 4 whole wheels for it on the Atlas. And if you want it to be more dangerous and therefore more rewarding,
I love that, by the way.
you're
the
probably going to
Atlas
do that.
stuff.
Yeah.
It's so good. That's just a great idea, I think. Like being able to specialize into the current league.
I agree. I think it's really cool.
I am a little bit torn. I think it's a fantastic idea as well, except I don't love that there's 4 whole wheels and they're in 4 different corners of the Atlas. That
Well,
feels
but what
like
do
a
they
lot.
give? Do you want them all? Because the way that I understand it, like if you have a temporary league on the Atlas, then you don't want to give power to the league, but you want to provide choice as to the playstyle of the league, right?
It looks like I want 3 wheels all the time. The 2 on the right seem good always, and then one of the ones on the left seems like every tree I think about has that. But we'll
Multiple
see.
trees
It's
will
hard to tell.
definitely help out there. And besides, I believe that just thinking about the whole topic, probably due to the actual very highly impactful nature of the reworks that are not league related, I think that's why the league is actually less impactful. I believe it's going to be less impactful than some other leagues, despite being mandatory. So I think the big differences are mostly going to be the mapping and scarab changes and Atlas 3 changes in the end game. So I think replacing your whole enemies with like harmless rats and frogs is going to be fun as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
This
a
is-
super cool aspect that you can actually like put these custom packs in place of the packs in your map, because you can avoid the dangerous packs and
Yeah,
replace
I'm
them with
excited to
something
see
else.
what kind of special properties and rewards they'll have. We've seen Dita 2 one. I'm sure they're going to be adding a lot of other interesting things.
I think it's going to be weird. But
Speaking of
we'll see.
tattoos, I really
Oh,
like
yeah.
what they've been doing in the last few leagues where they introduce something like in Trial of the Ancestors, they introduced tattoos and omens. And then in Affliction, they brought back omens and had them in the league mechanic. And obviously, they spent a league balancing tattoos. But I really like the idea of adding things from previous league mechanics that people like. Like we know they're adding the Nameless Seer to this league mechanic,
Yeah,
which is really fun.
I do like that too. Nameless Seer was great. And not
Did you
OP
get
as
anything?
part of last league.
Yeah, did you get anything from the Nameless Seer during Affliction?
No, but I was still excited to see it every time, even though I got literally nothing from him the whole league. And the fact that I was still excited, that's enough. That's enough that he belongs there, right?
Yeah, every
Like, it
time I
could
saw
have
him,
been.
I didn't get anything good.
Yeah, but were you still happy every new time you saw
Yeah,
him?
it was
before you click on
fun.
him?
It was fun to see him, right? Because I've heard the
Yeah.
stories of people getting like really good items from him. I was like, surely this time it's going to give me a good item, but
So it doesn't need to pay out. It just needs to have an obvious good possible payout, and then it's fun.
yeah, that's Path of Exile in a nutshell, right there.
Yes.
Oh,
True. That's literally me IDing rare Crimson Jewels, because they could be good. They could have life and useful mods. I mean, they never do, but they could.
well, it could. And one day it will. Not today, but one day. One day you'll ID a 4-stat one that's perfect for your own build. It'll be great.
And then you can finally say it was all worth it. All of these 1,500 IDs per day.
Okay, so we talked about the league mechanic being unavoidable, and normally we want to skip league mechanics on league start because they usually seem to cost a lot of time but not give you anything meaningful in terms of reward for your progression and in terms of shortcutting it to get that time invested back. So we're all interacting with the league on league start, or are we just not peering through the lantern and just rushing through the zone and trying to like avoid the monsters, run past them, maybe sometimes kill them? Or is it really something where we're gonna look at the thing every single time to not miss the good stuff and to learn the mechanic? What's gonna be your approach on day one?
So I need to actually watch out a little bit on what to say because I've actually played this as the league a bit already.
All right, Alpha of Access, damn.
But overall, I think the general idea that I'm gonna chase, and I don't actually know enough, and they change things so fast, it'll probably change a lot anyway. I will probably rush through the content, so pretty much ignore the leak most of the time. If I get some crafting materials, pick it up, use the crafting materials to get some occasional upgrades. I'm not sure if I'm going to even stick to combining different upgrades a lot during leveling. Most likely just grab something, use it as a sort of improvised alchemy to get something specific.
When you say the crafting, you mean like actual crafting currency, or you mean the corpses for the morgue?
The corpses.
Okay.
But generally speaking, they did tease something during the reveal, and that I found that really interesting. So this mechanic works differently in maps, and works differently during campaign. So during campaign, there's two things. First of all, the mods on the zone rotates. And then on top of that, if you clear the previous zone a lot, the next zone has a higher chance to get these special positive mods. That's something they tease during the review. And this is not there in the end game. And I find this really interesting because this actually means I will probably be interacting with this mechanic in specific zones. So let's say I know I want to catch up in the following zone. So I will probably try to clear this zone as much as possible. So let's say I'm going to be clearing something like aqueducts in X3 quite a bit so that I can catch up on levels if I'm rushing a little bit on Dried Lake, because then I'm hoping for devoted mods like the quantity of shrines or experience on the Dried Lake. And something like that is becoming a really interesting thing. So it's not just I don't think it's even much about how much you interact with that. I think with most actual negative mods, I'm probably just going to breeze through them. The campaign usually have enough power to just ignore whatever they put there. So it's just like +2 projectile or something, or plus 30% damage. It's like doesn't really matter too much. But at the same time, when it comes to positive mods and replacing mods, I think I'm definitely going to interact with that. If I find something interesting, some interesting O-Flame to replace it, I'll definitely go with that. You can make monsters harmless. I'll definitely be interacting with experience modifiers. I'll definitely be making choices where I want to invest into experience a little bit.
Yeah, I think mainly you're going to know, like I said before, you're going to know what monsters are dangerous already, like just based on what you already understand. So adding dangerous mods to those that impact them, in a big way is going to be something that you want to avoid. So it's just specific zones, as you go through the campaign. You just want to, like, some zones you can probably just ignore most of what is shown, but it's in some of them where those monsters are dangerous already, you probably want to check what mod are going on those monsters, because that is going to kill you otherwise.
Yeah. I'll be mostly ignoring it. I'll be doing zones like, obviously, mudflats, rowers. I'm not dealing with rowers. I'm definitely not giving them a buff. Or like, I can't think of others right now. Or like when you go and kill Yugal, that zone, like I'm not going to have a buff on those quills. That's not happening. I get one shot in that zone right near the end, near the portal, but before I walked into the boss, way too often. Like I'm not buffing them. Right? So like anything like that, I will press the lantern button and I will pick the things to make sure they don't appear.
Just use the new automated war cries and automate Infernal Cry and Enduring Cry. You get endurance charges, and they don't leave a corpse, so they don't do the thing if they're affected by Infernal.
Yeah,
There's
for 200% mana cost, pass. Thanks, though.
Life tap, easy. Well, yeah. No, I'm on board with that. I don't want to spend too much time peeking through the lantern on every zone, but I think I'm still gonna look at it every zone, and specifically, like you said, Balor, like before zones where there's rippy monsters that I know of, before I go into Lunaris and like all the tentacle ladies have 70% increased damage. I probably want to avoid that situation, or at least if I can't avoid it, I want to know about it beforehand, because it definitely will affect how I play the zone. Which is like, yeah, even if you don't want to manipulate it at all, like you should at least be looking at it like a brief glance, so you know what's going on in the zone.
I think for the most part, I'm not clicking it at all. But I'm also in softcore, so
Yeah.
like if
No,
I
I
was
mean,
in
the-
hardcore, I think I'm clicking it at least every zone, even if I'm not being picky about it.
Yeah, but I think there's plenty of people who play softcore who still get demotivated by death and want to avoid it, therefore, because it just slows them down so much by getting frustrated over it, that they probably gonna want to look at it. And I think it's also great for new players, because this is like, I think, the first league since, I guess, Arch Nemesis that have a similar feature that teaches you about existing monsters in the game. Because I really like that aspect of it, that instead of putting a help index into the game, they have the league mechanic teach people about what abilities and what damage type monsters do.
Yes. So this is quite impactful, and something I think that is also not underratable is that you'll be finding these O flames. And I feel like these O flames that replace certain monsters on the map are going to be very, very interesting as well, even while leveling. So you can definitely also be. So I think while leveling, you will probably definitely want to use those. On top of that, the O flames have a level on them, as you've seen on the teasers. So I don't actually know if they have an upper or lower level limit, but I don't think you want to replace any sort of monsters on your map with like a level 17 O flame. But if you'll be finding something like an O flame that contains a bunch of frogs, you can actually see on the teasers the frogs has quite a pack size. So you might just want to replace some sort of monsters during leveling with frogs just for that extra experience, items, whatever. So this is something that you probably might want to interact with during leveling. So
The
you
frog
don't need
packs
to,
are
yeah.
also huge, 16 to 21 monsters per pack,
Yep.
right? And the pack size is taken from the monsters in the all flame, but the pack density, I mean the
Yes.
occurrence density, basically, I think pack density is a little bit easy to misunderstand, but that's inherited from the pack on your
Yes,
zone.
the amount of packs on the map is the pack density, and the pack size is the size of one single pack spawned. So what you can do if you find an O-flame, or you can pretty much ignore the mechanic if you think your character is strong enough and you don't care. But if you find an O-flame, you can just stick it into the next map because you probably don't want to use it in the maps anyway. Not even sure if you can. So I think that is something you can definitely do during leveling.
Is there a limit on how many all flames you can use on like one map?
I don't know.
you-
I would assume there might be. I think they might not want you to replace like T17s with all of your dangerous monsters and Brutus is getting replaced with frogs. But then again, I really don't know. I just tested the filter a little bit in the first act, so no idea.
I was just thinking about it, like a really juiced map where you just replace all of the monsters with frogs, like a full magic line.
That
Oh
would
my
actually be
God.
fun, but I can actually imagine this happening a lot as well, because I think the O flames will go up in terms of base types. You can think about it, probably frogs will be something you'll be finding early on, and maybe something else that you can replace with. But I'm gonna bet that there's gonna be some high tier ones, like the two ones probably will not spawn early on, right? So there's probably some other high tier ones. Let's say there's like Chirula monsters or Sentinel monsters. No idea, just spitting ideas here. Or Calandra monsters. So if those exist, those probably only exist in the higher levels. And then the amount of possible O-flames increases. So getting actually T17 frogs might be very, very hard because they're like one of 60 different things weighted against each other. So they might even have an economic value because people might use them in order to make super hard maps more manageable.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Do we know whether all the monster packs in the map, in the zone, are appearing on the lantern, or is it only like a selection of the stuff that appears?
I don't think we have a confirmation of that.
think I can answer it, but I am somewhat guessing. I'm pretty sure it's all the naturally spawning mobs. So not ones we've added with scarabs or things that don't exist when the mob starts, like not your legion mobs or the mobs that were going to be in a breach or anything like that, but not the mobs out of a strong box, right? Just the ones that were going to be in your map already, I think.
Also, something I'm curious about, and I think you can also not replace. That's once again just my personal thought process. I haven't actually gotten this far. Some maps and some areas have specific monsters attached to them in terms of environment. So there's the, for instance, in Act 5, there are these sort of librarians who code onto the ledges, and there's these statues that are in X3 that leave the spots. I wonder if you can replace that. I'm gonna bet most likely not. It would be weird if you can do that, because
I don't even know how it would work.
Yeah, and then you have some very weird monster there in a different spot. So maybe we can't replace those, or those despawn. I don't know, but I don't think you can replace those.
Maybe they have frogs hanging from the libraries in that active
I would
set.
love that.
That would be fantastic.
The frog just climbing up the side and coming up.
And they're not even combat things, so you would approach them and the frog would just like jump off the wall and then just like sit there and hop around. That'd be great.
I mean, at least it wouldn't be as tanky as those librarians are damn tanky. They have so many hit points.
So to be fair, we might even be able to replace scarab monsters, because you basically lock in the map, right? So you first have to put like something like scarab there, and then you get to select the monster. So technology-wise, maybe possible. I would be surprised if they do that, but potentially.
Sure, I mean, they are locked in. You don't get the option to look at things until you go to launch the map, and then you can't pull the map out once you've seen them. So it could be done.
They didn't say you can't pull the scarabs out, but yeah, I guess if the scarabs got locked, then there would be no problem with that. Like
once you hit the button, that map is launching. There's nothing you can do to stop that. It is launching.
I also think so. It would be very weird, because then you can see the monsters and you can cancel and just the scarabs. I'm 99% sure they'll be doing their best to avoid all kind of abuses there. So I'm gonna bet even if you like lock out at this point, it will just start the map with the default settings.
Yeah. Yeah, if it gets to the point where you're fishing for good ones, the failed is just going to get launched. This is what I think will happen. You'll just launch it and then not even go in. If it was like to that point where you're like just fishing for the right map, which I'm not sure will happen, but if it did happen, I think you're losing all the investment. I don't think it's... Yeah.
Right, so there's like multiple axes here. We got you want to have the dangerous modifiers, or the higher tier modifiers from the haunted spirits or haunting spirits on the monsters that occur most frequently in the map, but you kind of don't want to do it on the most difficult ones, but you still have enough incentive to be wanting to do it on something that occurs fairly frequently, because the more monsters you slay in a given zone that are haunted, the more you are likely to get the devoted monsters in the next zone. But also you're getting more of the all flames, if I understand it correctly, because like every haunting adds a chance to drop the all flame embers to the pack. So I assume if you do like a pack that spawns more frequently in the map and has more monsters per pack, then you're also on average getting more all flames from that. And then also the haunting increases the chance to get the monsters with what's the word? Unresolved anguish. And
Not
those
that
are the
one.
ones that you want the corpses off for the crafting mechanic.
That's the one where you need to click. You need to do an extra click for the corpse to be collected. I don't know about that. That's a little bit weird.
Oh, I was unaware. You do need to do an extra click. I thought it was like Einhard coming in and throwing a net. I thought it was automatic.
If you find on the reveal where he talks about the monsters with unresolved anguish, there's like a little button that comes up and you need to click it, and then the Undertaker comes out of a little portal and collects the corpse.
Well,
okay,
I guess it
well,
depends.
That's okay. We'll all complain about that week 1. It'll get fixed. No way.
Like Metamorph.
Yeah, we're not doing that. No way.
Well, the question is really how many do you get per zone, right? Like if you have to
Yeah.
click between 0 and 1 times per zone, it's okay. But if you get 10 monsters per zone with unresolved anguish, then no one's clicking 10 times.
I don't think that's no, this has some additional aspect. Something that we don't know is how many things we can store. So Harvest had a number of things Harvest had a limited amount of crafts you could use you could store at the same time. So you might actually want to pick the ones you care about. So this is one thing that could be of relevance. And the second one is exactly as you said. I'm not thinking that they'll give us 10 crafts per zone, right? So the way they announced the crafts looked fairly impactful. Maybe not on their own. I think to actually make good crafts in the end game, you probably need to fill half your graveyard with corpses, maybe the full graveyard, because you probably want to have like explicit modifiers, quality, all of this stuff combining together. Since you're creating a new item, you're not modifying that, so you need to take care of everything. You want like higher life tiers, you need more things for that. You want some explicit mods, you need that as well. So you need a lot of corpses. So I think you will be both picky about what we pick, but at the same time, I don't think you'll be getting endless crafts overall. And if you get some low-level craft, and you get something like, I don't know, you get more chaos modifiers, unless you think you can probably sell that. I don't think you'll be caring about that if you're running some sort of cold build.
That's true. Yeah, I can't see them offering too many of the corpses in each map. It might be 1 to 2, maybe. I don't know. I wonder if juice will actually affect how many corpses show up, or whether it's just going to be static.
That's a good question.
It's almost always more juice better. Almost always.
I mean, I won't be finding out since I'll be juicing all the time.
Right?
Right.
I'm already expecting to pick up 15 scarabs a map minimum. So
yeah, there's going to be a lot of scarabs. There is a lot of scarabs. There's so many nodes on the Atlas tree for scarabs. Have you guys seen how many nodes there are?
Yeah.
There is just so many nodes that you can choose.
It's actually insane how many scarab nodes there are.
Path of Scarabs.
What about
scarabs?
The keystone that lets you not use scarabs and lets you not find the scarabs, but gives 20 additional Atlas passive skill points?
Oh, this one is really good for one single thing. And there's been this Reddit thread, and this is the moment where I thought, wow, this is actually clever. So first of all, you might actually want to use it for like masters and so forth. So have like one specialized tree that only focuses on one thing, where you don't farm things, but farm specific content. So I can see that coming. But also someone made this really cool post that you can get with, you can rush this thing and then get all of the Delph Nico nodes and all of the Shrine nodes. So this basically gives you this big 105 increased damage, 45% movement speed, 3 max res, and all the shrines per map. So you can use it as sort of a clear atlas. So while building up before you have the final atlases, I mean, let's be honest, you'll be getting all of your really good scarabs and rewards once you have all of your things set up and juiced. I don't think you actually care if you lose out, let's say, on half a divine of scarabs while completing your atlas. In the grand sense of things, being speedy there is more beneficial. So I think it's honestly a good thing to pick that while you are completing your atlas on your first atlas tree, and then you can just respec to a second tree, and you'll be using the first one just to get like more map drops, buffs, easier time completing the atlas. So depending on the build, this might be actually a really good idea. And once you have all of your atlas completed, you switch to the second tree, and there you go for the strategy you want to do. And you still have a third tree, so you don't even need to care about respecking quite as early. So yeah, I think it has its uses. But for endgame farming, maybe for some very specific strategies, like rushing to the boss as soon as possible so that you complete maps and get as many invitations, something like, not invitations, but as many elder maps as possible out of that. This is kind of the only use cases I can see for highly specialized things. But overall, once again, I don't think I should be talking about that too much. But I feel like the scarabs are going to be, there's some very interesting things there. And also, I really just want to, I think I can talk about that. I really want to pull my hats off to Mark. I've been actually talking to him a bunch of times when I've been complaining about certain specific stats and numbers. And I feel like their team has become incredibly responsive over the past or in this league, because in the past alphas, I've never seen them actually listening so much to user feedback. So I feel like the numbers on that will be very interesting. So people will be probably using a lot of scarabs. There's some really cool things there.
Nice.
That's reassuring to hear.
I think yesterday I put out an Atlas tree video just with like 8 different trees that I thought would be pretty good. 2 of them were starter trees. Because I think the idea now is that everyone will have a progression tree where you don't actually care about making money or like what the thing is, because you'll have a second tree for that. Your first tree is just how do I progress quickly, and that's it. And one of my progression trees does take that node, and that's probably the one that I'm going to run because I'm not quite really rushing it immediately because I'm going to get some Kirak nodes and some connected nodes. But then I'm doing exactly that in that tree. I'm doing that, rushing up there, and then getting all of the packed with energy stuff and all of the shrines.
How many nodes does it take to get there? If you're rushing, how many
it's
nodes?
19 if you speed rush it the quickest way
19.
possible. It costs 22 the way I'm going, but the way I'm going is getting good nodes that I was already going to get most of the way there anyway.
It's probably worth it. Getting like 19 maps is so easy. It's probably worth going there because you get all of the connections to the other worthwhile things. But
you gain access to a bunch of stuff on the way, and as soon as
you're not missing out on that many scarabs.
I don't expect to use my day 1 Atlas tree for more than 1 day. So like, how many scarabs was I really going to make on day 1? Like, probably not enough. Probably not enough to care. But if I can move 45% faster and have shrines and get really good map returns, then that'd be great.
Dreamcore, you were saying something and I interrupted you. Was there, like, did you want to elaborate?
What was I saying? Was I talking
about
the keystone? Yeah, I was saying that if you're pathing straight to the keystone, right, you're going to have access to a bunch of nodes that you might want to use. And then as soon as you actually spec into that keystone, you can just invest straight into those with the extra 20 points that you have. So I think that's going to be worthwhile. I mean, you can grab some like impactful nodes on the way. Like the chance to spawn masters now is just so much. Like pathing through that first June node to get betrayal spawning in a bunch of maps is going to be really nice. Expedition early is really nice as well. I think the first expedition wheel is 52% chance or something like that. So you, on average, you're going to be getting expedition spawning like every other map.
That's pretty crazy.
So that's what I'm definitely going to be taking that wheel early.
I don't think I'm going to be taking it in my very first Atlas, but I think Expedition is going to be on my second tree. I'm really looking forward to actually playing Expedition this league. Not sure why. I think it's just kind of in a very strong Expedition mood this time.
I don't really like. I won't lie. I don't like Expedition very much, but it's just too good. Like for self-found, it's just way too good. It gives you everything you need. It gives you crafting, gives you currency.
I really like the big boom node. And now that there's a big boom, the big boom node.
Oh yeah,
big
the keystone.
Boom. Oh yeah, on Expedition. Yeah.
I love that one.
So, what are you guys thought on league starters? If I'm gonna interject there for a sec.
Yeah, I don't have a planned league starter
because I need a proper league start so they can focus on important things like making.
I saw your tweet. You said you want to make a point of playing a new build, so I don't have anything new for you. Like the thing is, I'm doing what Balor did last league, which is the small group found environment. So I have to play a good SSF build. I'm probably gonna go Elementalist Ignite, and it's probably gonna end up being DD because I need to do bosses. I know it sounds boring. I wanted to do Wave of Conviction Ignite or EK Ignite, but honestly, pitting that against DD for bosses, easy
Yeah.
choice.
I can make it harder for you to make your decision and also spoil tonight's YouTube video at the same time.
Sure.
Go for it.
Is actually a poison SRS buff. The SRS nerf in the patch notes, it's not a nerf.
No, I played SAS so many times. I don't really need that again. But it's definitely gonna be awesome. No, so my choices right now are basically between 4 different builds. There's the new Power Siphon of Archmage with the new Wisp looks actually really good. So that might actually be really fun to play and still can stack a lot of defensive mechanics. Then there's the Archmage, which is just all around busted, I think. I've been running some numbers and I think it's just insane, especially early on. You just get so much damage there. So that with Hierophant or Elementalist for Lightning Conduit could be like really good. Then my third thing is Armageddon brand with the automation and brand Rico, and there's this automation brand of Rico on the Saboteur. I'm not sure how exactly to work with the trigger bots, but I think it might be just really fun because you can like stack up on a lot of high damage brands, and on top of that, this build has like the best selling point of all of the others. It has like the super cool MTX that I really want to try out. The Celestial brand MTX. I'm so sold on that.
Oh, that looks so good on
Yeah,
Armageddon
it has
brand.
these. Yep, it looks has these really cool ruby celestial crystals falling out of the sky, and
Yeah.
usually it looks like it looks like some sort of mesh. It's not really a cool looking skill, and this turns it so crisp. And then I'm thinking about maybe pretty much a similar thing. So something with and maybe the new tornado with energy blade and the energy blade, whatever it's called, support. Spellblade. So this one also looks really good. There's a lot of damage effectiveness. So you can I think it's going to be absolutely insane as a starter. I think any of those will probably be doing very well with very little gear. But deciding, this is the hard part. Probably will do it by today evening so that they can focus on making more filter
Have
changes.
you seen NeverSink?
Hmm?
The few different versions of cast on crit, detonate dead of chaining as a hit build that are
Yeah,
going around as
Very,
league
very
start
strong.
options. They look real good.
Well, I mean, anything with Detonate Dead of Chaining is good. Like, even Selfcast, you just play Necro, and that's probably the best league starter in the game, honestly. Necro, Chain DD is so good.
Same with Archmage. Archmage, most people who are looking into Archmage seriously are looking into Detonate Dead as the trigger weapon for Archmage. Because Archmage doesn't really care about anything else on the skill. You really just want the best damage delivery system.
Wait, Archmage DD of chaining?
Yeah. Just you don't actually care on Archmage about like it needs to be a lightning skill or something like that. How much damage effectiveness can this baby put out? This is all that matters, and AOE maybe. So this is all you care about. So there's like cool things. So you could go for like Bladefall with Awakened Cascade for some insane later on damage. But at the start, you basically, if you look through most skills, they have very similar damage effectiveness as far as I can see. So pretty much they kind of optimize towards the same thing. And with Bronze and Orbs gone on Archmage, one of the best thing you can actually do is DD of chaining. First of all, it makes it much easier to sustain your mana, but it has so much damage potential. It's insane. So it's kind of very comparable, in my opinion, to the new Incinerate. But with Incinerate, you basically have to stand still and channel this thing. And then with the Archmage with the DD of chaining, it's really good, looking good. The problem is you basically have to give up your dignity and play Detonate Dead. But
I've never played Detonate Dead though. So
I played it for the first time last league. I like avoided it for a long time because I wasn't really interested, and I played it last league on Inquisitor. That was the new Chain DD, and that's one of the most fun builds I played. It's really fun. I could fully recommend it. Yeah, it's so good.
So I'm currently gravitating towards the Armor brand because of the MTX and the Triggerbot thing. So I'm not sure how Triggerbot interacts with the automation thing because it's a minion. So it's all kind of weird there. But I think it'll be fun and playable nevertheless. And if not, I can gravitate towards something else. But yeah, I'm pretty sure the strongest of those choices is Archmage, DD, that's probably just the best of those choices I've mentioned. It's probably going to be insane. Maybe Energy Blade will scale it later, because Energy Blade Spellblade is insane. But yeah, I think that's really, really good.
Can you cast on crit Archmage things?
Sure.
If you get the
You
mana
could.
for it. Don't triggers have like huge mana multipliers?
Yeah.
Not that much. You can absolutely do something like go Necromancer, Cyclone, Castwell Channeling, and then generate corpses with Corpse Walker, consume those for a lot of like stats, mana regeneration, so forth, and shock and chill value, and then trigger whatever you want, like go with Conduit or DD of Chaining. There's like a lot of silly, insane things you can do there, and I'm pretty sure that will be like one of the really, really good league starters. So it's going to be technically a bit more advanced.
I was thinking more bow cast on crit for the damage, and then Mana Forge life tap cast on crit, a second one to summon corpses.
Sounds spicy.
There's one tech that I've been looking at a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't spoil it here, but I will do. It's Scorching Ray of Immolation. So that's one of the transfigured gems from last league.
Mhm.
And what it has is it has a longer duration compared to the original Scorching Ray. And how that skill works mechanically is every different player or different totem applies its own debuff, which lasts for the full duration. Which means if you play this on a totem build and you stack duration, you can continuously re-summon your totems, and the debuff continuously gets applied and lasts for the full duration. And this skill is front-loaded with damage. If you look at the original Scorching Ray, it deals a lot of damage when it's at full stage. It actually deals more damage than the transfigured version when it's at full stages.
Yeah.
But the transfigured gem has a lot of front-loaded damage. It does a bunch of damage straight away, and it has a big duration. And it's 3 seconds base. You can scale it easily. You can easily get to like 10 seconds without much trouble. Get to a boss in the map, and you just spamming totems, and your damage just ramps and ramps and ramps.
That sounds really good, especially since I would actually like to see a viable Scorching Ray build being out for once. It's such a cool skill that hasn't seen any use since ages, except for like application of exposure.
Yeah, so that's a tech there. I think it's pretty strong. You can do a lot of damage early on as well on really poor gear in a league start scenario.
Sounds really good. Is that part of your starter plans, Dream?
Yeah, well, I've been looking at that tech. Yeah, I think that build is just going to be really easy to play as well. You just the gem basically plays itself. You don't really need to do anything special. Like as soon as you pick up that gem, it already has enough duration, and you already have enough, because if you're playing on a Hierophant, you have enough totem placement speed that you're already getting so much damage out of it. And as soon as you take like one duration wheel, you add efficacy to your links, you play Malevolence, you have enough duration that it's really strong. So that's something that I'm looking at. I haven't decided fully that if I'm going to start that, but that looks really good. And I think Hierophant's a great class right now. It's very, very good.
Yeah, definitely Hierophant great on day one. I mean, also later, but like on day one, it's like probably one of the best picks that you can make. Similar to Elementalist, where you just get the stronger exposure and you get the fire prolif or any prolif that you want. It's just a lot of value from the first 2 labs on day one.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, what do you guys think what do we assume right now when you unlock your second Atlas tree? What's the point? It's like after doing Exarch and Eater, or you think it's later?
I think you'll have one by then. I don't know if it will unlock from that, but I think you'll have one by then. Thematically, I wish it was Cirrus and Shaper, but I don't want it to be that late. Like, I think that would be too late in the process, but I just think thematically it would be very cool if you kill Shaper and he gives you a new Atlas to play with. And then, like, you go into Cirrus. You want the Atlas? It's yours. And then he gives you a new one. That'd be great. It's too late in the process, so it's not going to happen. But I want it to be.
I wonder if it will be just based on like your level when you unlock it.
Character level?
Yeah.
No.
I think at least the
it's
first one will
definitely-
be completion.
Yeah, I want to say it's definitely tied to Atlas progression in some sort of way, either the completion or some bosses.
It could be like your first red tier map or something. You unlock the second one, and then maybe the third one is like much later on. Or it could be your first tier 16 map, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's all
I know
thinkable.
I know the answers. I'll stay out.
Okay, yeah, that's unfair.
Someone spoiled me.
Damn. But yeah, like I honestly think the second additional one can be super late, but the first additional one, yeah, you definitely want that early on in your progression, so you can have one progression tree and one farming tree, so
I
you
agree.
can switch between those. That you can have like get geared up and then switch to the progression tree, finish your progression, and then by the time you're done with the progression, you don't need the progression tree anymore, so you get 2 different farming trees. So then you don't really need the third tree anytime soon, right? Like, it's nice to have a third one for a third thing that you might want to be doing, but I think bouncing between 2 trees will be fine as soon as you get your progression figured out.
Yeah. I don't expect that you'll be switching trees that often. Like it's a thing that you're going to use later on when you want to actually switch between different strategies. Then it's going to become much more useful. But you have you're going to have like a starting tree, and then you're going to switch to more of a farming tree, and you're probably going to stay with that for a while.
I can tell you one thing I'm definitely going to have eventually. I don't know about on League launch, but I'm real happy to have an experienced focused tree for leveling alts.
Yeah.
That's a good one, yeah.
Because quite often I get alts and I don't like to carry them. I don't like to get boosted. I don't like to go to 4 ways. I just want to go run maps. But I'm usually stuck in some like wandering path MF setup or like something like that makes it just like awkward to level, and maps are way too difficult for that character at level 65 when I got to maps, and it's always awkward and annoying.
I'm personally very excited to try out some Maven farming this time. So with the invitations being finally streamlined, I know some people are unhappy about invitations getting removed, but I don't care. Those people can suck it. Sorry. that's like, hey, can we please monetize one of the most annoying systems that you have to buy a single invitation for every single boss rotations? Like, no, it's like was one of the most nasty systems out there, and then you have to run the things where you have all of the bosses already witnessed. I hated it so much. So I'm so happy it's gone. I'm like, in general, I'm so praiseful of GG, decoupling the Uber bosses and doing the Uber invitations away. It's gonna make bossing as a strategy it was profitable before, but now it's gonna be actually fun.
Yes.
So I'm definitely looking forward to trying out the Maven farming strat, and at the same time seeing if I can make a build that can handle the extra bosses and maybe the affliction bosses. I'm definitely going to get stomped by those, but maybe like by day 4 or 5 I'll be able to run that decently. So yeah, looking forward to that.
That's actually one of my favorite changes that they're making is the splitting of boss loot tables between the
it's so
standard
good.
version.
Not just the loot tables, but also the tokens that you need to access the fight.
Yeah.
That it's not competing. I have this access to Exarch, right? And now I could either do a regular Exarch or an Uber Exarch. And obviously Uber Exarch gets way more out of the token.
Yes.
And it's the same token. That was always my biggest pet peeve with that system.
Something else they've also changed. I'm not sure if they actually changed this patch or not, but if you look at the Atlas tree, not a single node in the Atlas tree improves the rewards of bosses. So like the Exarch bosses, the Maven boss, Maven, Shape, and so forth. Nothing of that. There's no more Watches, Eye Chance, and so forth. So you don't have this FOMO feeling of, hey, you're running a boss, and unless you have a very specialized Atlas, running bosses is stupid. And the same thing, you're feeling like you're not running an Uber boss, you're feeling stupid because you're losing out currency. So you basically spec on expand the Atlas tree if you want to have more boss access. But actually, farming bosses can be done by any build at any time. So if you want to, you can just buy up a lot of bosses and farm them. And this has been a great decision, not only from the balancing and economic perspective, but just to make the player feel and strategies feel much more smoother. So we have so much more flexibility, and this is something I'm loving it. So league-wise, I'm not sure if I care how much influential eventually the whole Necropolis thing will be, but I'm super excited for the core gameplay changes.
So I don't want to be too negative because I'm like 99% positive.
I thought you were
going to
say, I don't want to be the guy who told you so, but I told you so.
Well, that's where this is going because I had a fucking. I got into an argument on this podcast for like 40 minutes over how when we were implementing Ubers about every single problem that has existed, all of them, nailed every single one of them before the league that Ubers even came in launched. Yeah. These were all very obvious problems, and it's been terrible for the whole time. It never should have even launched that way.
I agree.
This is the correct way to do it.
I agree.
I agree with all you said. No, but you go first.
No, it's fine. I've been basically same experience. I've been arguing with people who've been saying that Atlas 3 is the way to go, and I felt like, why? Why would you ever say that? Sorry.
One of the biggest problems with the old system was actually that there was this giant gap between standard bosses and Uber bosses that, you would be trivializing maps, like completely trivializing them. And then there's just this giant gap. And especially, I can't imagine as a new player going into an Uber boss for the first time. And there's no like comparable content. You're just walking into an Uber boss and just getting absolutely destroyed because you haven't had any other comparable content before that. And all you did was click a keystone on the tree. Like you just read the keystone. Oh, okay, it's like a couple of monster level higher. That's fine. Like surely it's going to be fine. And then you just get absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
So I do like that system that they're having like a bridge.
Points if you try out zeros first.
I can't. This is like it is 99% positive. Loving everything about this league. Loving all the balance changes. Everything like that. It's just real hard for me to praise them for finally making a change to a system that was so very obviously wrong that I knew every single problem that existed before the league even launched. I don't understand how that happened. I can't, in good conscience, praise them for 3 years down the track, finally figuring out what was obvious before it even launched.
I'm not sure it was a discussion on the podcast. Okay. Didn't we all agree on that when we talked about it?
Yeah.
No?
No. It was someone on the podcast who I argued with. We don't need to get into it, though.
Okay. No, but like, I'll agree with everything there, but I just still think that for the first league where they introduced Ubers, maybe not for the race, right? Like, that's a completely different thing. But I think it wasn't bad to have easy access to Ubers, right? Because what we compared it to when it was introduced first was like, well, Atziri has a good system that's been in there for a long time where they have separate loot tables for regular Atziri and Uber Atziri, and you progress to Uber Atziri not by spending the same fragments that you access the normal fight, but there's a separate set of fragments. Now, in that case, you get that separate set of fragments from running the first Atziri, right? And here it's now different. What do you think about that, where you don't farm Shaper to get Uber Shaper fragments, but you farm the tier 17 maps? Do we already know whether there's a weighting to the fragments for the Uber versions of the bosses? Or is it just you get a random fragment per tier 17 hero?
We don't know. I can imagine we'll get a random fragment or maybe multiple fragments. I have no idea.
Aren't there 5 Ubers? Aren't there 5 Ubers?
7.
7? Oh, there's
Cosmic,
only 5
Decaying,
maps.
Awakening, Synthesizing, Reality, Devouring, and Blazing.
That actually pretty much confirms it that these drop for more or less randomly because I can't, or maybe they have like a weighting towards a certain T17 map. But I really think that, so I'm not sure this is the most elegant decision, but I like that they're basically doing what they can do. So they basically have formulated quite well. So they don't want you to fight Shaper, find the Uber Shaper fragments, then start Uber Shaper and just getting obliterated. So I feel like it's a good choice. on top of that, it actually makes the whole progression more interesting. You farm tier 17 maps, you farm tier 16 maps, you get occasional access to the shaper fragments, you get to fight normal shaper, you get to influence the normal shaper, and then you get to fight a few invitations. Occasionally you're going to drop a T17, you're going to fight the bosses there. It's going to take your whole time to get your 5 fragments together to fight every single boss. So if I'm going to assume that these Uber shaper fragments drop randomly, it will take you quite a while to actually collect one single Uber encounter. But by the time you can actually get all of these fragments, I think you actually might be powerful enough to take them on. So this has the advantage that if you're just farming one strategy, like just Shaper, I think the point is without trade, you won't be able to access the Uber bosses quite as quick as before. No, as before, it's not even a comparison, but you won't be able to access the Uber bosses quite as quick. So I think it will take you quite a bit of time to get there. And I think this is just in general a much more natural progression.
It's also significantly different in Southbound as well. Like the access to Uber fights is going to be a lot rougher in Southbound. But I still think it was the correct decision to make that change, because if you had it so the fragments drop from the standard bosses, the problem still exists that you just go from the normal bosses to Ubers. There's no, you don't actually have to do, like, they still could have added tier 17s, right, without the fragments dropping from tier 17s, but you're not incentivized to go in them, like, especially if they're really difficult. So you still have that problem where you're going straight from normal bosses to Ubers, and you get it's the same issues there, right? You just get destroyed.
Well, and also the other way around is like when you're actually at the state where your character is strong enough that you consistently want to farm Ubers, you don't want to, in order to generate the Uber fragments, you don't want to go back to the regular fight that you just steamroll, where you just go in and one-shot the boss, basically, and just to farm up the fragments for the actual boss encounter.
And I mean, I'm excited for the new bosses, right? In tier 17s, they look so good. I think they're going to be awesome maps. They look really, and also I'm excited for like future expansions where they add more. They those maps, they can just continuously expand on them. They might start adding like one tier 17 each league or something. Add a new Uber boss in. That's like a direction they can go in now.
Be very cool. I would be on board.
And we get all of these nice new unique items. Like, that's so good. All of these new unique items that could be really good. The helmet from Eater of Worlds is really fun. The one that converts rage into cast speed and spell damage.
Yeah, and that one looks crazy.
Gloves from Exarch are really strong as well. The stacking fortification.
I'm excited about the new Wrathlord helmet. Wraithlord helmet?
Oh yeah,
I was going to ask you about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Secondville League for me, for sure.
Most of the T's uniques have some sort of very powerful use case. I mean, the Rage helmet is just, I really love it, but I think the Wraithlord helmet, I can't believe they're actually putting this thing live. This is kind of one of those feelings where I think this is generally a GGG thing where they would put something on there that's just so powerful you don't actually believe this is going live. And this is one of those items. I mean, just the 4 Abyss sockets themselves, if you would have a unique with just 4 Abyss sockets on the
and
helmet,
no other stats.
No other stats, people would use that. But you have +2 global minions and all of these Spectre goodness.
And
that's
plus
insane.
4 Spectres.
Yeah,
we're going to have 9 Spectres.
So outside of something Ghazi will craft on after using 7,000 Hinekora locks, I can't actually imagine you replacing that for any sort of Spectre build. And well, that's actually fun because you get to farm this sort of high value thing, which is awesome, really.
It's really weird because that one is balanced both by like having extremely low other stats, like low base and stuff like that, but also just the rarity, right? Like, I mean, we don't know how frequently it will drop, but there's tons of uniques from Uber bosses and like other top end encounters that we virtually never see drop, right? Like you have like 1 in 100 or 2 in 100.
Yeah, I think the Wraithlord and the Mana Storm Shield are both going to drop from tier 17 bosses based on the reveal.
They confirmed that.
So there's three more uniques that come from the other bosses that they haven't disclosed yet.
They have. They're in the patch notes.
True.
They're in the patch notes?
Yep.
Yeah, in the patch notes. There are other ones are also quite good. There's the Dark Seer one. That we can actually look up the stats.
Oh yeah, I did see the Dark Seer. Yeah, the Dark Seer is really nice.
Yeah.
It has two all skill gem levels, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one I was a little bit confused about, because currently in the game you have Dark Seer in 3 variations, like 1 mana and life, 1 energy shield and life, and 1 energy shield and mana. Now it seems to be unified into just one version of the item that has mana and energy shield.
I'm not sure about that, but even if it's not the case, and I think it is unified, I think it grants basically mana and energy shield, and on top of that, there's also this other line that's really easy to miss. So it grants you maximum mana, energy shield, and on top of that, it grants you malediction.
Yeah.
And +2 to all skill gems. So it might not be the most powerful unique, and I don't think it is. I don't think it's the best thing ever been there, but I think it's kind of like a mid-tier, really, really good weapon. I think it kind of takes a spot like Divinarius, that it's basically an insanely powerful weapon until you can craft up something 30 divine worthy or more. So I think it's very, very, very powerful.
Yeah, the yoke of suffering change as well. That is very strong. 10% increased damage
Yeah,
taken
that
for each type of ailment.
doubled. It
Yeah.
doubled in. Did straight up. It was already something people used.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
And now it's going to be
just
harder
doubled.
to access. Yep. And the Malachi gloves as well.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a good
that-
change, because those gloves were pretty
Yeah.
bad before, and that's a good change.
Every
And
time I
Ralakesh
talk
is
about this
now-
league,
Yep.
I get more excited. I want to play. Let me in. Let me in. It's time.
Yeah, the Malachi's are really cool because there's like every 6 seconds it swaps from Malachi's Endurance, Frenzy, and Power. So like basically you generate charges on kill, say endurance charges on kill for 6 seconds, right? And so you get your last endurance charge like 1 second before the 6 seconds end, and then you have 6 seconds of gaining frenzy and power. So you only need like 13, 14 seconds of endurance charge duration before you're back to generating endurance on hit. So you need like only 1 or 2 charge duration mods to make your charges last longer, and then you basically, as long as you're killing things, you have all the charges up all the time.
I don't think it has that anymore. I don't think it will be generating any sort of charges every 6 seconds. It just grants you power, frenzy, and endurance charge on hit.
Isn't it just on hit instead of on kill? I thought that was the.
Yeah, exactly. Like the gaining endurance charges, frenzies, and power charges is based on Malachi's endurance, frenzy, and power buffs. Like as long as you have Malachi's endurance, you get endurance charges on kill currently, but after the patch, you get endurance charges on hit.
Yeah, I think the buffs will still be there based on that wording.
Yep.
It says Malachi's
Absolutely.
endurance.
okay.
But if
Yeah,
you
right.
like, for example, if you click the Trickster Frenzy node, which gives you global charge duration,
Yeah.
like for the
Yeah, you need some
then you
duration.
use those
200%,
gloves.
right?
Yeah, that's just gonna be permanent uptime on all charges.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
The big change with it is just that it's on hit. So now,
Yeah,
if
you're
there's
right.
one tanky thing or a boss, you're good. You'll still have it.
Yeah. So it's basically going to be a bit of a replacement, not for everything, but it's kind of like Rarakesh in a sense, because Rarakesh now lost its movement speed bonus. So if you can live with the glove slot being replaced, also has some life on it, so you can definitely have an easy access to all charges, no problem at all. For pretty much most builds that do some kits.
Yeah,
I'm
I really
trying to
like
think
those
whether
new
I'd rather
changes.
sacrifice boots or gloves.
Definitely gloves, because the boots now lost their 30% movement speed, so unless you're using lightning warp.
Yeah, but if you're an attack build, like gloves can have like more than
there is-
15% attack speed.
Yeah,
And
true.
there are so many builds that whirling blades around or leap slam around.
Yeah.
Also
that
depends
just
how
don't
often you
care.
hit with these gloves, because if you're
Yeah.
playing a build which like damage over time, you only hit once every couple of seconds or something, then these gloves don't really do much for you. You need to hit a lot. It's only
Yeah.
a 10% chance on hit that you gain a charge.
Well, I guess if you damage over time, then you need explosions, because those hit.
Yeah, it depends on the build
Yeah.
entirely. If you're using something like Lancing Steel, you won't be having any troubles, but with, I don't know, with a slow hitting build.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see the other new unique items that they're adding to the
Oh,
actual
yes.
Uber bosses.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be awesome. I actually asked them, can you provide me? So I got the filter notes, kind of the early version of that, and I asked them, can you provide me with the base types that have some new uniques? And they told me they can't because they don't want to spoil it. So I'm actually now excited what that means.
Well, how do you guys
didn't
think
even ask
the
for the unique though, just the base type.
No, I just wanted to know the base types because I wanted to just give them some sort of never hide this on any strictness early on so that they won't be hidden. But yeah, very, very excited. Maybe they're doing something super unique there.
how do you guys see them splitting the boss loot for, like, for example, for the Searing Exarch? Do you see like Dawnbreaker going into the Uber pool, and then maybe the Dawnstrider boots stay in the normal pool? Perhaps
Did they not?
Dissolution goes Uber.
Yeah, this
Did
is
they not
such an
post them?
interesting
Do we not
question.
know?
No,
I think
We don't know. We only know about the Shaper pool, I think, because they showed that
Oh.
off in the reveal.
Okay.
So like it's
Yeah.
interesting to think about, because
yes,
when they're deciding which item goes into which pool, you kind of have to consider the power level of the item. Like when they first added those two bosses and the loot for those two bosses, I think they kind of figured that melding was on the same tier as dissolution, and then obviously there's the two amulets that drop, which they figured was kind of the same tier. That was the case on the launch, because obviously both amulets were super strong, but dissolution barely got any use, and melding was used like crazy. So I wonder if dissolution will go into the normal Searing Exarch drop pool, and melding will actually go into the Uber Eater of Worlds drop pool, because it's, I could see Ashes being the rare drop from normal Eater, and then melding goes into the Uber pool.
I can imagine that both amulets. It's really tough to say. That's such a hard question
Yeah.
because any of the uniques switching the tiers would actually change the meta a lot. Even if they would
Yeah.
move like Annihilating Light or Dawnbreak or Dissolution or Omniscience, just looking at the Exarch. So if they move any of those, it will be a huge influence. So I would definitely imagine that either I would say probably the jewels will move to the Uber access. And I think the logic I would use that is that the jewels are usually there in order to enhance a build. They don't actually enable a build, with the exception of Dissolution of Flesh sometimes. So I can actually think them probably moving the most build enhancers into the Uber versions. So I think Annihilating Light and Dawnbreak is gonna stay. Maybe even Crystallize Omniscience. I'm definitely seeing them as getting. Oh, it's already there, but I'm gonna assume that the jewels are gonna be Uber drops. It would be interesting to see the amulets being Uber drops.
I think Dawnbreaker is going to go into the Uber Exarch pool. I think they've realized over time that is such a powerful item that a lot of people use, and that they're like, okay, that item needs to go into the Uber pool.
I kind of see it in a similar way like Shaper's Touch, but maybe. Or maybe Annihilating Light actually will become super rare. This is also an option.
That would be really interesting, actually. Annihilating Light being super rare.
I wonder about Forbidden Jewels.
Oh yeah, those. Same for Watcher's Eye. I wonder if those will be Uber exclusive. That might change the meta so much.
I think the Forbidden Jewels will stay as they are because they already have the split. Like, they obviously, you can drop like the specialized one from the Uber bosses that you can't get from the normal one.
True.
So maybe that will be the only shared drop between the two pools.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
That's a good point. I was gonna say to Dawnbreaker that it already like has such a huge variance on the rolls that like, it could be completely worthless and it could be like one of the most valuable items in the game. So I'm not sure whether it needs to be in the Uber pool. They
could also put it in the normal pool and make it a rarer drop. Like, you could make it so that Dawnstrider drops all the time because, barely anybody uses it. So, and then it could just be that Dawnbreaker becomes like a 5% drop or something from normal Exarch.
Maybe they just make a whole bunch of new powerful items. I mean, we'll see. It's definitely going to be exciting. I agree. I've been also asking myself. I agree it's going to be one of the most interesting questions and influence farming behavior a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super hyped about this. Like, there's so many like changes, good changes that shape the end game into a different direction, more quality of life, like all kinds of stuff that we always wanted. Something that could be a little bit controversial that we should talk about is how you guys stand on the complete removal of sextants.
Fantastic.
I love
10
it.
out of
Yeah,
10.
good.
I love it.
That was
So-
very quick and universal.
Well, no, I'm gonna just address one thing. Early on in the development of the whole scarab thing, I think I can talk about this at this point, and just want to do it as a sort of praise to Mark as well, because once again, I feel like in the past, at least the last 2 leagues, you've seen some of the most best straightforwarding of mechanics GG has ever done. So early on, I was actually worried about that, because you're basically losing out the sextants, you're getting a few specialized scarabs, and I've been worried about it on the level that, hey, what are the juicing builds? And Wandering Path is gone. What about the Magic Find groups? Now, I don't really care too much about them, but at the same time, I do think it's a cool niche that PoE offers. And if you have no more sextants and just specialized scarabs, like a bunch of breach scarabs, this might actually become a bit of a problem, because those builds don't have anything to like high specialize in. But I feel like they've addressed this overall with the power of certain scarabs that are going to be there, and I feel like they've addressed it by making all of the crafts on the Atlas available without the Seventh Gate passive. But so overall now I'm very, very positive about that. What I'm still a little bit annoyed about is I wish they would give us a way to still add the scarabs into the map device in a more streamlined fashion. Something I'm still a bit annoyed about, that they've been doing that in order to streamline the whole system, to not have mess around with sex and so forth. And now you basically have to mess around with the scarabs in a similar way, like you have to do that. But now you have even more scarabs, and those kind of combine in a very specific fashion. So basically that will lead to a lot of annoying micromanagement. I wish we could like have the scarab tab open on the one side and just directly click them and pick and match them on every map, because I feel like it's going to be a little bit annoying to micromanage them. But generally, sextants...
That might actually be possible.
I hope it will be. But sextants themselves, I'm not really... I'm very happy that they're gone. I never really like them too much. Yeah.
Do you remember metamorphs? How you could build metamorphs, where most people were like dragging the organs, but you could also just click the organ slot and have it just show you all of the organs in there. I want that for scarabs in my map device.
Yes,
I just want to be able to right click on the map device and have it pull up the list of scarabs and just be like, that stack there. And I've got 150 of them, and it just stays there until I run out.
Exactly. To be fair, I really want them to streamline the whole crafting mechanics even. Imagine, so what they've done with the harvest change, that the thing is always shown. This is more or less how I would actually envision crafting and mapping in a optimized modern way. You see all of your crafting materials that are relevant on one side. You see the fragments you can add there on the other side. And when you start a map or when you craft things, you basically just pick those things together. You see always the outcome. So you see you want to apply the alchemy orb, you want to add those scarabs, and then you create kind of this pre-crafted map. You can even maybe apply the scarabs onto the map itself, so you can pre-craft them all in a very nice, fine interface instead of the way we do right now. I feel like this whole tab switching has become a little bit annoying. But everything else about this league very much excites me. Yeah, I think it's good. And I mean, Sextons being gone is already a big improvement.
I think some kind of system on the map device where you could save a setup of scarabs would just be ideal. Like, you know exactly what scarabs you want to use. You have them in your stash, and it just pulls them from the stash. You just like have a thing set up so you can just click, I want this, and it will just pull the exact scarabs that you want and apply them to the map.
So I've been trying to get better at racing through the acts again, right? And like I started min-maxing on the little things that you usually don't start doing before you're like really good with the build and the act progression and all that. But for me, it felt like fun to practice like the little things, like specifically vendor walking, right? So in Path of Exile, you can walk up to a vendor and like right before the context menu pops up and you can purchase items, you can click away. And then your character walks away from the vendor, but you still get the context menu and you can still like trade with the vendor
Yeah.
while not standing right in front of them. And then during practicing that and researching it, I realized that you can not only vendor walk from vendors, but you can also vendor walk from the stash. So you can walk up to your stash and click to the exit of the town and have your stash open and interact with the stash at the same time while you're like already walking to the exit of the town. And what I also noticed is that if you vendor walk away from the stash, clicking a vendor, then you can have your inventory, the vendor screen, and your stash up at the same time, and you can buy from the vendor into your stash straight away. You can pick an item and put it into your stash.
There it is. That's
And-
the solution. That's it.
Well,
Just
no,
get
it's
good.
not. I just tried it. You can't vendor walk to your map device from the stash.
no.
I just tried it.
Yeah,
The map device
they
thing
just need
doesn't
to make
pop
it
up.
official.
Wait, can I do that backwards? Can I vendor from my stash?
If you have both open, I would assume. I could try. Well,
Because emptying my dump tabs is like the worst chore in the whole game. If I could vendor
I
from my
agree.
stash, that'd be great.
I don't think you can do that. Yeah, I would be surprised if that's possible.
If we hear it's possible, we stop talking about it and never say another word. And everyone in chat, you never heard it. Shh.
Okay.
right, I'm trying it. You guys have to talk about something else in the meantime.
Nope, we're just
Okay.
going to wait patiently.
Okay,
It's
you
just-
definitely have to hit it right the first time, otherwise it closes. Now you can't have the sales screen open. You can only have the purchase screen open in the inventory and the
Oh.
Yeah,
stash.
but this is exactly it. I don't think we should be needing to do this sort of hack. So I really hope.
Yeah,
that
it
just-
shouldn't be like a skill-based thing where you need the millisecond timings right and like the
I'm
micromanagement
not
of the
even
mouse
sure I
cursor.
will call it a skill-based thing. It sounds more like backup using, to be honest.
Yeah, well, clever use of game mechanic.
Yes,
It's not
yes,
technically
yes.
a bug, but yeah, it definitely it ties into another thing that we should be talking about, which is the removal of left mouse button instant skills. Where I just think, yeah, while it's an inconvenient change and it results in something very unpleasant next league, which is probably a lot of people going to be using numlock every zone to autocast skills. I personally probably am not going to do that because it's going to be annoying to do that for every single zone. But I really like leveling the playing field between all like ways to control the game and between all platforms. And,
I got a lot to say about this change.
Yes. You saw.
So
Go for
those
it.
2 skill gems that they added are really good. I don't think anyone's going to disagree that they're not good. The balance might be a little bit off of those skill gems. Like the mana multiplier on the Warcry one is absolutely ridiculous, by the way. But
Both of them, really. But yeah.
yeah, but the concept of them is great. That's a really cool concept. However,
Yes,
the
I
way they
agree.
went about removing left click instant skills, I mean, they've literally just squashed General's Cry, right? That skill just doesn't exist anymore. Like the way you would play it is you'd cyclone through maps with Castle Channeling Desecrate, and now you're just going to be constantly pausing in place every 1.5 seconds to Warcry because there's no instant Warcry. Or you replace one of your damage links with this new call to arm support, so you lost a bunch of damage. You also lost damage through the cooldown multiplier that's on the gem as well. So, and corrupting cry got a similar treatment, but corrupting cry is less relevant, I'd say, because you don't have the whole like cyclone thing going on. So now General's Cry is kind of a little bit weird. Like it's still going to be just as good for bossing. Like for bossing, you don't really care. You just plop down a desecrate and okay, you spend a little bit of time war crying to summon the generals, but it doesn't really matter too much. But mapping is just going to be painful on that build. And I think they could have come out with the left click change. And when they described why they did that, I don't know why they didn't just say that it's against our TOS. Like it is literally against their TOS. It is 2 actions at the same time. You're moving and using a skill with 1 click.
Except it's not. They introduced it 5 years ago.
Yeah,
they made a big post about it saying, hey, you can put instant stuff on left click and have it be automated as you run. Literally on their post.
And now they've realized that that's something that they don't want in the game because they want parity between like console and WASD when that comes into the game, which is probably going to happen in PoE 1 before long.
Which is,
Do you think WASD will be in PoE 1?
Yeah, I think it will at some point. Yeah.
Oh, I hope not, because it's a different game. The moment that you have WASD, and I'm fine with PoE 2 having WASD, it's a new game, but I really would disagree with WASD and PoE1 because it changes so much how the game is played and balanced around it.
Yeah.
It's really rough to say, and I would probably maybe move to this topic a little bit later, remind me of the VSD thing later. I want to talk a little bit more about the automation thing. So I definitely agree. I feel like first of all, this is one of the cases where the communication was definitely off. So first of all, I would never advise anyone to communicate it in a way we are doing it in order to make it better for the console players. That's why we're removing your feature. That feels like a terrible way to communicate towards everyone. But yeah, that's okay. So then the gems themselves are fine. Maybe some numbers need tweaking. I don't know. They're actually interesting. They're adding something in a good way. So basically, the problem is no matter how you look at it, I feel like the decision is not perfect because it takes away multiple choices from the players, and the things it offers is a little bit problematic. Either you don't use that anymore, so you don't use the left click tag anymore, and you go with some macros, which is silly and still takes up a slot on your hotkey bars, or you use it and lose power, or use gem sockets and some cooldown. It has some implications for general cry. The thing I'm arriving over and over again is that this is probably the right decision because it feels less like a bug to me. I know it's not a bug, but it feels like more like an annoying system use. But I feel like at this point they need to do something about the socket problem. So either they need to add easier ways of adding sockets to certain skills. Maybe they can allow adding a trigger onto an item directly, like all items on the boots. So it's kind of enchantment style. All items on this pair of boots have the automation socket. All items on this pair of gloves have something else. I don't know, maybe some sort of enlightened support, something like that. But I feel like the problem they're basically facing, they want to add more cool mechanics, but the socket pressure and the hotkey pressure as well, but mostly the socket pressure has become so large that basically it's really hard to fit in. So they need to add something to improve the socket pressure if they want to add mechanics like that, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Socket pressure is just insane, and it's ever increasing as well.
I had a really good solution for that. Well, not a really good solution, probably not super easy, but like my suggestion would have been to give every character 3 innate sockets that are not on your gear, but they're in the character, right? Like outside of the gear slots there. And then you have 1 wildcard thing or 2 that is linked to those sockets where you can put the skills that are not granted by your skill gems. So you could put your bone armor before they removed it, could put it there and then support it with gems. That would have been my suggestion.
I think the easiest way for them, honestly, would to just add another item slot. This would probably be the potentially best thing. Not sure what this item slot would be. It could be some sort of relic or whatever it is. Yeah, pants. So add an item slot with 4 more sockets. That's not the most elegant solution, but it allows for a lot more interesting things if they're built around that. Alternatively, they need to really completely rework the system or need to add things in between onto items themselves or change the socket system itself in weird ways. I think we'll see which way they'll pick actually in one of the next leagues. It feels like it's one of the next big problems PoE has, and they've been standardizing a lot of problems. Like they've been standardizing the last league. They're basically going away with this whole enchantment and out quality gems and all of this messiness in favor of a more streamlined system. This time they're doing it with maps. So I can imagine them actually doing these standardization rounds every few leagues now. And I think it's one of the best things. I'm going to attribute it probably to Mark as well. I think since he's basically been taking over, I'm not going to praise him anymore this time. I feel like it's a bad idea.
He deserves all the praise. Like he's done a great job in the interviews, and it just feels so refreshing to hear him talk because he's someone who's actually playing the game. I mean, no shade at Chris. I love Chris, but when Mark speaks, it feels more like a fellow player than when Chris speaks.
I feel like Chris at this point might even be burnt out. I mean, he's doing all of the actual not fun things like business decisions and hiring progresses and talking about contracts. I can very well imagine he's just getting burnt out. He just doesn't have any time to do proper decisions. And whenever he takes decisions, he basically might be just fearing that what he does is based on information where he just doesn't have enough experience anymore. So I feel like a more a fresher game designer who has more relevance or more experience with the game itself is a really nice point. And he's also a decent game designer, because it's not enough to actually be good at the game. You actually need to know game design and psychology. Otherwise, every Redditor would be a good game designer, which obviously they're not.
All right. My turn.
Go for it.
So the gems. I think they're bad. Not good.
Okay.
I think the idea of those gems is great. Having a built-in, like an intended way to automate a lot of things has a lot of really good uses that are interesting. However, if you're going to cost me a socket, then the support gem should be an upside, not a downside. It should not have a mana multiplier. If anything, it could have like a 90 or 80% make it easier, or it should not have increased cooldown. It should have like cooldown recovery rate. It should be better. If I'm going to link something to essentially return the same functionality I just had taken away, it should be improving my skill, not making it worse and cost more mana. The second thing is, putting stuff on left click was never a terms of service problem. That's always been allowed. But not only that, the numlock trick is not a terms of service problem. Which means this change to take away left click just means that I am now inconvenienced at the beginning of every map to not even break the rules, to do a bunch of complicated stuff over here on the numpad to get the functionality I already had back again. I don't like that they've made it super inconvenient for me to do the same thing I was doing before for no reason. However, that doesn't mean I'm against removing left click entirely, but I am against removing instant skills on left click while leaving numlock trick in the game. I don't know what they can do to fix the numlock trick. I don't know if you can ever fix that. It's been usable in every ARPG and every MMO I've ever played. I don't know if it's fixable, but that's not my problem. That's a them problem. If it can't be fixed, then I am simply punished by not using it. Because now there's this thing that I'm allowed to do, that I can do, that's an inconvenience that I have to do at the front of every map and every time I alt tab, and it's this huge quality of life downgrade, or I pay the tax of a support gem I can't fit to then spend more mana and have my skill go off less often. That doesn't make sense. So I want to either remove the skills the way you are. That's fine. Removing left click is fine. Also stop the numlock trick from working at the same time. Or give it back. Because and I'm fine. I am absolutely fine with the decision of not having an instant cast on left click. I am not fine with the decision of not having an instant cast on left click, but still leaving me away without even using the support gem to return the same automation I already had. But now I have to do a bunch of awkward things with my hands every single map. That's weird and awkward, and I don't like it. The other thing is, there's one thing that didn't get fixed by that, which is mines specifically. Mines specifically, you wouldn't want to numlock trick. So we actually couldn't use numlock trick to do mines, because that goes all the time, even when you're stationary. And a big part of getting away with the automation of detonate mines is that in certain cases, you want to stop, stack a bunch of mines up. You can even reposition with your movement skill and then walk to detonate them all, right?
But
and so
this was addressed in the Q&A. You watched the Q&A,
I'm getting to that.
Okay. Just making sure.
So in the Q&A, they said, in order to fix this, we're adding a new mastery. That's what they said. We're adding a new mastery to mines so that you will be able to have that automation, and it'll be a mastery that says, mines automatically detonate while you're moving. And I thought, cool, that's a great solution. I'm okay with that. It cost me 1 passive point to get my old functionality back, but I'm okay with that. That's fine. And then the patch notes come out, and they didn't, in fact, add a mastery. In fact, they replaced the best mine mastery in the game with the mastery that would now return the functionality that I already had every other league. So we lost, on average, about 100% increased AoE. And in place of that, we got a return of the functionality we already had by just having detonator.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on there. That was such a strange change. They could have made it a keystone or something. I don't know. That was such.
I get why they've done it. It's very, very understandable why they've done it, because the master was way too strong. That's just their reasoning, and I can actually expect them basically buffing up the base values of the mines or the base values of the mines. But the mastery has been incredibly busted. I mean, you've seen how they've been treating masteries lately. They've been trying to get masteries back to the point where a single point is kind of relatable to the mastery power, not quite there, but it's more like a normal node. But 100% AoE on mines has been absurd. So I'm pretty sure that's why they fixed it. But still, I also agree with you, because it's been basically kind of this classical GGG doubling down and punching the same thing multiple times until no one uses that. But that's kind of their specialty.
But that one was slightly annoying, because we didn't get told anything. There was no mention of a mine nerf. There was just, we're going to add the functionality back for 1 point. Okay. Oh, never mind. Actually, all your mines lost 100% AoE.
Well, I mean, I get it that it feels like that, but it could be completely different decisions that they said we want to add this mastery, and that someone else who balanced was like, that mastery is way too strong, that needs to go. And now it looks like they replaced your mastery with the new one, where those two changes may have been completely unrelated.
They could have been. That could be right. But it
doesn't change how you feel about it. I get that.
It feels very sneaky, and I don't like it.
I just don't understand the call to arms keystone change either. It makes no sense at all. Like, you already removed left click instant skills, so those builds that were using instant war cries would now need to use it, either number locked, like Balamage said, or on a different hotkey and holding down a different hotkey. But that single and also, what is the new keystone even? There's some kind of like minion keystone now. It makes your warcry buffs affect allies, or maybe it's like a aura
supports on minions.
But losing instant warcries is just a giant nerf to a few very specific builds. Like the builds that use things like enduring cry, that they're just going to use the new warcry support. They're going to find a way to use it, or they're going to use something else. They're going to replace that with something else. But those very specific builds, like General's Cry, they were just completely squashed by that keystone change for no reason. I just don't get that change, and I haven't seen anybody talking about the use of that new keystone either. Like the Warcry buffs, I looked through them; they're not very good on most minions. Like almost, I couldn't see any synergies there at all. There's like one bypass
making it down there. That's
the problem. Yeah, the only thing I could think of was champion SRS, but it's like it's just there isn't really any good buffs. If you read through the Warcry buffs, they're not great for minions. There's like some Fizz Overwhelm, which might be good on zombies, I guess, but no, it's not really very good.
And then even if I could get there for free, I can't think of a single minion build that has spare sockets.
Yeah,
I'm always using 1 or 2 unset rings, and then still missing 2 or 3 things I'd love to have in the build that I've just had to decide not to use because there aren't enough sockets. Like, I've never had a minion build that had free sockets. Never.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was something else I wanted to say, which was related to what you said. I really was happy to see the Warcry support as like, oh, this is new tech. You can actually automate multiple Warcries. Yeah, you do sacrifice the sockets, but it also means that the Warcries don't cost you cast time or like standstill time anymore, downtime from your main attack. So this is actually a viable alternative over getting the Call to Arms keystone, right? And using them manually, either previously on left click or now with a separate button. But now, self-casting your Warcries with the keystone is not an option anymore. If you do want to self-cast your Warcries, they're never going to be instant. They're always going to cost you cast time, which is unacceptable in some ways. And that's also where I disagree with you, where you said Ballard, that it makes the skills worse. Because for the Warcry support, it's actually better to automate the Warcries because they don't cost you time to cast.
Right, but that's part of the change. Like if this league, they're just on left click and they're instant. So
I actually wonder if they should have just made all war cries instant all the time.
Yeah, it seems kind of
think so.
odd that like screaming takes you like downtime
have to
for your
stand in
attack and from
place, yeah.
walking.
Yeah.
to yell real loud, you can't attack and swing your sword you can't swing your sword at the same time as you yell.
Nah, it takes too much effort to take that deep breath, right? So you can yell loud enough. Couldn't raise your weapon at the same time. But something else you said I wanted to respond to is like there was a similar problem with Second Wind in the past, where Second Wind would grant not only the +1 cooldown to non-instant skills, but it would also grant cooldown reduction. And then Second Wind was used on any skill that had a cooldown because you just wanted to get the cooldown recovery rate increased. So while I do agree with you that the malices on these skill gems are way too big, I don't think they should be inverted to bonuses, because that would lead to that same situation. That it's just better to run that.
That's just about they have to make them better in some way. In my mind, if you're putting a support gem on it, it has to make it better in some way.
Well, the better is that you use them all at the same time. You can automate like 3 skills in a 4-link with automation support. Well, like
Not
yeah,
for
but
Warcries,
numlock
because
is
they're
like
no longer
4
instant,
separate
but
or 3 separate buttons on your hotbar.
I'm not sure we are. This is right. So I've been thinking about that, and this is kind of sure. A level 1 random automation gem is gonna be worse than not using that, right? But first of all, it grants you the automation. Then, if you look at the gem itself, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to add like things like empower and enhance in order to that, in order to actually get it to be way faster than the regular version. So
isn't
I think
it a
there's
support?
No, they're
now
meta gems.
I think it's kind of like meta gems like Spellslinger. So I'm gonna be assuming that you probably need to activate it, like how we do it with Spellslinger. I don't think it will be just
Yeah, you need to
randomly
activate it.
Yeah,
you do
it
need
turns
to-
it
you
into
need
a
to
toggle.
activate it, yeah.
So we'll probably be able to add quality there. We'll probably be able to play around with different setups there, and then we can actually make it potentially very, very fast. So this is kind of the advantage I see there. On top of that, there is one more thing that I feel like should be also approached. You can support multiple skills. This gonna be. I'm not sure how the Warcry one will work. It's phrased in a very ambiguous way, but we can definitely support multiple instant skills with the automation one. So I think that might actually add a lot of new things, and it also kind of is adding a lot of design room for future supports. I'm definitely with Baro in this, in the sense that we've seen this happen in the past. It's kind of like the second wind thing, right? So when they basically no one uses second wind now, and previously we've been adding second wind in order to get an additional charge and lower cooldown. Now I don't think anyone uses second wind outside of very, very specific niche scenarios. So it's kind of like a support gem making things worse. And this is somewhat how I feel about automation as well. But I think I hope that the numbers will work out in a way that with enough investment, you can actually make it into an advantage.
Okay, you've slightly changed my mind. On the cooldown front, I think as long as it gets to like even roughly, I'm probably fine with it. I think maybe I'm just upset at the mana costs.
I think it will
I
be
don't think it
even
should
with
have
the
any.
20 quality. Because
I don't think it should have any mana multiplier. Just at all. That should be free still. Not that the skill should be free, just that the support shouldn't change the cost of the skill.
No, I don't know. So I don't really see it a problem either way, especially with coat to arms. So coat to arms definitely should be more expensive. I mean, it makes the Warcry instant, and it's actually so coat to arms. I also feel like this is just a point that a lot of people are kind of been ignoring. Coat to arms is amazing. So you can just now on every build slap your 2-link Enduring Cry coat to arms and have, with a little bit of investment, pretty much permanent 3 Enduring charges, assuming you're basically fighting a boss or fighting some monsters and some regeneration. That is so good. Why? This is such a crazy defense layer.
There is a
Especially
Warcry
early
mastery
on.
that makes your Warcries count as having at least 10 power every single time. So you get guaranteed endurance charges for every enduring cry if you have that Warcry mastery.
Sure, but this is kind of in the forbidden area of the bottom right place
you're
where
over
I
there.
just wanted to point it out.
the majority of softcore players have never moved their passive to there. But no, I agree. I definitely agree that this is a good idea to use that. That's really good. I mean, I agree. Maybe actually picking that up would be very much worthwhile. But this is just a huge defense layer, and if it's possible to actually use multiple Warcries at the same time, which I kind of doubt because that would be absolutely insane. Imagine you have like a 6-link and you just have all of your slams exerted, and it's like that would actually enable a whole bunch of high power builds.
There's the right side of the tree. Yeah, no, like, I'm gonna assume that none of you have watched the Palstron video on these new skills, because Palstron has actually pointed out something that no one has pointed out here yet, and I want to draw your attention to it. And that is the fact that when you link multiple skills, like the skills being triggered by the automation support doesn't count as you using the skills. So if you look here, right now Phase Run is active, now Molten Shell goes off, and then there goes Withering Step, and you have the Withering Step elusive debuff, and then right afterwards Phase Run goes off, and normally when you use a skill while you have the Withering Step elusive, that Withering Step elusive gets replaced with the secondary buff from Withering Step. But in this case, it is not interrupted, and it remains on the character while the automated Phase Run goes off.
I really don't know if this is intended. I really no idea, but I really would not count on that. So
that's actually how the mechanics work in the game right now. Like if you trigger a skill, it doesn't count as you actually casting the skill yourself. Yep. It's the same for there's a Warcry mastery that gives you recovers 15% life when you use a Warcry, and the wording of that mastery now implies that won't work if you trigger it with the new.
So assuming this is true, what would be the most advantageous use of that?
If you can find a way to trigger instant skills giving you kills, like killing, if you can kill things with it, then you can just have permanent Withering Step and run super fast.
You'd have to kill things with Frostblink. I think that's the only damage instant skill, right?
After Vortex is not instant anymore, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although
I guess you can use something that's not an active, like the Death Aura on Death Sword.
There is a whole Frostlink build, though.
You can technically use the so that's something I've been looking into since chances are high I'm going to go with the Armageddon Brand Recall starter, and you can actually use this whole thing. So Brand Recall costs mana of your brands. And you can use this Code's Brittle. Someone posted it on the on Reddit. You can use Code's Brittle in order to take damage when this is triggered, since your mana skills deal physical damage, in order to loop into CVDT, which will allow you to spend more Armageddon brands technically or other things. So in this way, you could basically create a brand loop caster. So you could actually go with that.
That could be
That sounds
interesting.
spicy.
Yeah. I'm probably not gonna do that. That sounds like a great way to die from physical damage and have no mana. But
the Armageddon brand recall looks really strong though with that.
Yeah, but this is probably
strong.
more gonna be my starter. I really like the idea. It's something I've never played, so maybe I'm still gonna maybe an hour later I'm still gonna go for something like Archmage. But I really like the player style.
Yeah, it's gonna be very powerful.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to having my new staple with the Call to Arms, Enduring Cry, Infernal Cry while leveling. The only downside there is that with the Ignite leveling that I'm doing, I'm already, I got so much socket pressure for skills that it's, really hard to imagine being able to implement that before Act 6. Very rough.
Yeah, the Call to Arms support is nice for potentially for two-handed slammers. So you're gonna have to use it in your main link. You're gonna need a 5 link with life tap because there's no way you're paying that mana cost. With no mana reduction, it's 114 mana when all 3 Warcries go off, I think. So
yeah, but you can also use Enduring Crime at the same time, so you kind of get the life back. But
Yeah,
you probably you can go like for a 6-link with life depth, coat to arms, 4 war cries, and then you can use another 6-link, and you'll be very much fine. And if this
the
is
problem
actually
with
sorry.
Yeah, that is that's a great point. You can, but the trouble with melee builds is totems didn't get fixed again, and socket pressure is absolutely ridiculous on those builds. It is so bad. And one of the things actually was that Mark talked about the Atlas tree, the keystones being removed because they felt like they were mandatory, right? It was like a thing that you just kind of felt like you had to do to make an Atlas strategy good. Well, the totems are in the exact same spot, and even Jonathan agreed with that. So I'm really surprised they didn't get. I mean, maybe it's one of those things that they just don't know how to fix yet, so they wanted to spend more time on fixing it, but we really need those totems fixed.
I think they basically know the problem there. I think it's kind of on the list. Maybe it needs some more I believe they probably need to do more extensive changes. They can probably need to revamp the whole system in order to fix that. But I definitely agree. I feel like in general, it's a little bit silly, you have like your range characters like archers having completely passive mana forged arrows, transient charge generation, basically auto cannons on their back, and this is where they have all of these automation things there, and you have the melee classes that are already in a way weaker because they need to get closer to the enemies. Well, not in all cases, but still. And these guys basically have to put their weird sticks on the ground every few seconds, and this is yeah, I really hope they improve that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I want changed in the game the most is the ancestral totem buffs. They're so frustrating to use, and they're something that you absolutely can't avoid. Unless you just want to deal 50% less damage, then you can just avoid them if you'd like to.
In my mind, just buff all melee skills by like 50%. And then just get rid of the buff from totem.
Basically just roll the totem buffs into the skills. Maybe at a little bit lower numerical value, because then you have permanent uptime and no micromanaging, but...
Nah, melee is already weak anyway. If this results in it being a little bit buffed, who cares? Just roll the full power of the totems into every single melee ability, and then just get rid of the buff.
I honestly would like them to maybe go for more of a Mirage Archer approach, where you have your totems and you can activate them, and they're kind of like banners on your back, and they beat on enemies, and while providing you with this melee buff. So I do like the idea of melee basically having its own kind of flavor. We have like different flavors to different classes, right? So, and interesting support skills. So Rangers have their Mana Forge Arrows, and Mirage Archers, as I said before, and Ballistas, and casters use Arcanist Brands and Enhanced Curses, and Summoners use Convocation, a lot of support minions. So I don't want basically melee to just be go there and beat something with right click until it's dead. So it would be cool to have their own flavor of interesting things. But it definitely needs to be in a quality of life type of fashion. I don't actually mind the support gem or the socket pressure thing there. I feel like this is a problem, but this is kind of the same for everyone else. So if you want to have your Mirage Archers, you will also have to use, if you want to have your Mana Forge Arrow setup, you also need to use sockets. So this is a problem. It's a problem everyone else suffers. The problem is the quality of life thing there. It's just not fun to use your multiple totem thing. No one's enjoying that. Like, no one likes that. It's annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem. You have to use it, and the gameplay is bad because you throw down totems. A melee build doesn't invest into totem life, so the totems die instantly. Then you have to spend an extra passive skill on the lingering mastery, and some builds are already starved for passive points. So, and that's already a band-aid fix anyway. The passive skill. So, yeah, I just think that they need to fix that. It's the one big problem that melee has that seems like if you fix that, even if melee's behind other archetypes, people are just going to enjoy playing it so much more that it becomes something that's fun to play again.
Well, it's also a matter of having fun is also not necessarily being stronger than others, but it's also like having some sort of space in which you can build your own build. And with how obvious most of the support gem setups are and other gem setups, now having another no-brainer for the war cries on top of the totems that you brought up, it just feels like there's very little things that you can do for melee to make a build your own, because it's like all kind of laid out for you what you have to do if you don't want to miss out on.
This is why I used to enjoy Slam like Earthquake Bleed, because that was a melee build that didn't use any totems. You didn't get any damage from the totems. That was just, you just drop a slam, everything gets hit, everything's bleeding, and the more melee damage from Ancestral Warchief didn't apply. The attack speed didn't really matter. But that build got absolutely destroyed. That's been long lost.
That actually sounds like it might be fun to play.
It was fun to play at one point. Back in Ultimatum, I played that. That was really fun.
So I've tackled most of the things that I wanted to talk about specifically. I mean, there's tons of other things, so we can't go over the entire patch notes. There's so many changes. But is there anything that you guys wanted to talk about specifically before I deplete all the rest time with a silly topic when you guys actually have the 5-head talking points?
I want to plug something.
Path of Pathing?
It is exactly that.
I wanted to bring that up earlier when you talked about your build tree plans. Go for it. Should I show it, or do you want to share your screen?
Oh, you should absolutely show it. If anybody hasn't seen Path of Pathing yet, it is a new Atlas tree planner. It's already updated. I'm going to link it because people can have a look. And basically, it lets you do a whole bunch of things. But the main thing, the most important thing, is it lets you almost automate a skill tree where you can just click essences and it'll path the most efficient way to take every essence node. And then if you click something else, like you click shrines at the same time, it'll repath the entire tree the most efficient way to grab all the shrine nodes and all the essences. And then if you decide,
how do I select all the essence nodes? Is it like shift click on
the
essence?
Click the essence bit in the middle of the wheel.
Right, in the middle, right. That was Torment. Okay, yeah, here.
And then you can block off a specific node, like let's just say, for instance, that the essence wheel on the left was something you didn't want, but you wanted all the others. Well, you can click that again, and it'll put a little cross on it, and it'll still select all the other essence nodes, but it'll just repath thinking this one is not worthy anymore. I don't want this node, but I want all the rest of them. And so it's just auto-pathing all of your trees in the most efficient ways it can find.
It's amazing. It's such a good website. It's
the first time I'm using it, it's amazing. That's really good.
It's missing one thing from the PoE planner, which is that it doesn't have saves. It doesn't have like your ability to have a profile and a bunch of different saves. But what was added very recently is down the bottom left, it just says open in PoE planner. And so you can just build the tree here, click open in PoE planner, and then just save the tree.
Yeah. Or like, some people are also working with like text documents. You could just copy paste the URL, right?
Yeah, you could
put that into your document and save it that way. But yeah, a big shout out to Lilylicious, the person who is a co-dev on POB and also organizing the Badger Private League with the organizing team. We've had her on a couple of times. And just wanted to shout out because we didn't mention the name. But this is an excellent tool that we've already shown on the last Badger Private League related podcast that we did. But I'm 100% in agreement that this needs to be brought up now when people are actually looking to plant the trees.
And at the point we talked about it last time, it was still beta. It still had some problems and some times when it was pathing badly and shit like that. And it's a lot better now.
Since we're plugging things, I want to plug actually my own filter blade site with a new feature that I just want to show you guys. I think especially Baro will be interested in that.
Yes, please.
May I share you something?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, let me see how this actually works. Share screen, sharing easiest. Okay, share screen. I think this is that. Can you see my? Yeah. Okay. So this is the general filter blade site. Yeah, general filter blade site. That's fine. So I have my filter loaded there, nothing special, right? So right now I could get it in game by two usual ways. I could click save and synchronize, and then it gets in game there. But the problem there, it sometimes is delayed, especially if you do a bunch of changes and GG caches those. Nothing I can do about that, but that's an issue. We're aware of that. There's the other thing, and this is kind of a little bit annoying, and this is then you have to download that and you have to copy it over to your folder. So we've added a advanced new way. It is basically kind of improving the download version. So it is currently in beta. You have to enable it under settings, and this here, it's called filter direct write. So what you can do now is once this is enabled, and this is stored once you've enabled once, you can click Ctrl S. Not sure if you can see it. It brings up a save dialog, and then I select the file, and it stores the last file location, and click Save. You can see that, but it basically brings up a file dialog, and it just directly writes it into the file on your hard drive, and it also saves it on your profile. So it doesn't actually, you don't actually need to do anything, and you can adjust anything here. And I click Ctrl S, and it doesn't bring up the dialog anymore because it stored the file and it stored the access to the file for this one session. So you can basically use this, and let's say I don't want to see something anymore. I'm going to go to divination cards. I don't care about these, and I just want to quickly update it. Ctrl S, and it's done. When enable it, Ctrl S, and it's done. It also updates it on your filter blade profile at the same time, so you don't actually lose changes. So I think this is a really cool feature for really quick editing. Yeah, that's it.
No, that's awesome, because I was always like missing the feature of being able to re-import a filter that I didn't save via my PoE account, but that I downloaded. But obviously, I can't upload or I mean, maybe that's a feature.
You still can't upload. So this is nothing changes about that.
But it does what I wanted to accomplish with the upload, which is taking a filter that I made on your website exclusively and download it because it's faster than to do it via the thing.
Yeah.
But now I can re-edit that filter when reopening the site after having opened other filters and all that, because I can get to the exact state that I had that filter at before saving it. And I've always wanted to, which for obvious reasons is not possible, right, to upload my own filter there and then edit an existing filter, but that would have also only ever worked with filters that were made by Filterblade. Like, it couldn't understand my own filter that I wrote from scratch. I don't think people do that.
It's not that it can't understand it. The problem is it can't map it to the customizer, and we can't basically figure out what kind of things have you changed in your filter so that we can basically have this sort of version preservation. There's like a lot of how for Filterblade is basically the logic. How do you keep user filters updated while allowing them to have their own preferences? This is a very, very complex question, and I'm just not going to spend time on that. But this is basically why a lot of limitations exist. And also, there's also some other small things that you see, like there's now icons for items, not for all of them, but there's like small, cool little improvements and features which we've been working on. Yeah.
It's extremely good, guys. If you've never used Filterblade, go for it. It's the way to make a filter nowadays in Path of Exile. I don't think anyone I don't think there's any merit to doing it outside of Filterblade at this point. There's just you streamline so many like decisions that happen in the filter making process, and the steps that need to happen in order to make the changes that you want to make. It's so much easier. I just a couple of years ago, like 3 years ago, I'd download filters from Filterblade, and then if I wanted to change one item, I'd go into the code and change it myself because I didn't have the time to work, like to understand Filterblade. But now that I know how it works, everything. Also, thanks to Balor for showing me on stream the other day, like a couple of weeks ago. There's so many things that I didn't know about it. It's such a good tool, and you're my personal hero for making this and maintaining this over all this time.
Awesome.
Well, any other talking points that you guys wanted to bring up? How you guys stand on boss loot not being obtainable through stacked decks anymore, but you can still get it from farming area-specific div card drops, and there's still pretty much Valdo's keys for every boss drop in the game. Do you think those should also be removed?
Well, yes, but it's too late for that. And on top of that, if you would actually change that, would make a lot of the global drops kind of problematic. Also, if you look at the stats of how many items are actually Valdo items, I think like 10% or something. So I don't see it as a huge deal. But overall, I think it is a really, really good change. First of all, this preserves the value of boss drops. In general, I think this is just something I perfectly agree on. This is one of the things that should have happened a long time ago.
Yeah, that's a great change.
I also don't think Valdo's maps should exist at all, but that ship sailed, so people are paid for those. We can't get rid of them.
Oh
No
yeah,
point
the
in-
Valdos. I actually meant the reliquary keys. For some reason, I thought said Valdos keys, but yeah, both the same culprit in that scenario.
Yeah, it's too late now. Those have been paid for. People paid a lot of money for them. They put them in. Feels
Well,
like
people paid money for diff cards as well, but like when GGG doesn't want the diff card to continue in the game, they just remove it and give them a new diff card to make. But I guess with the Valdos maps is a little bit more involved process.
I'm kind of on the fence about the Valdos maps though. Like the reliquary keys are sort of like different thing entirely. You just open a key and you get an item. That's kind of boring. The Valdos maps, even though they're a little bit weird with the loot and things like that, they are pretty fun addition to the game. I mean, I kind of enjoy seeing people void their characters in softcore. It's something that's
probably
quite fun.
not the maps themselves that I dislike. It's that you can build a character strong enough to guarantee you're able to do them, and then just print multiple Mage Bloods, multiple Headhunters, just back to back to back to back to back. You can just build characters that have a 0% chance of death.
Yeah.
And they exist. We've seen them all of last league. And then that person will buy 45 maps for 10 div each and turn those 10 div maps into 120 div belts. And then at the end of the day, flood the market with them. And I just don't like that.
I'm gonna go with this is a self-solving problem. Once this happens multiple times enough people will start doing that. It's not just build such a character. It usually takes an insane investment to actually get there. And when this has become a normal strategy, it's kind of going to become its own racer niche in a way, which is interesting. I agree that this is weird, but then again, if you're building a map that is so insane that no one can complete it safely, I'm not sure if it will be run overall. So you still kind of usually, if you build such a character, you can run specific mods on this map. I don't know how I completely feel about that. I think it's fine. I think it is kind of overall fine. To a degree, the way I see it, there's a certain point until which you can basically, I'm going to call it the ordered area, until which you can kind of control PoE gameplay and can keep it balanced and useful. Kind of at this point, you have your effective damage multipliers, things kind of work in a normal way and so forth. At some point, you start engaging with such insane mechanics and overlaps and so forth, like Mage Blood and Headhunt and all kinds of stacking and insane combinations. At this point, you basically can't really have properly balanced gameplay anymore, and developers say, you know what, that's fine. At this point, you've earned your power fantasy, do whatever. 90% of the players stop playing anyway, and I think this is basically the point that's happening there.
There's going to be so many less Valdos maps anyway next league.
That's true.
The
that
Valdos
problem might
maps are
sort
just
itself out.
dropping so much because of Affliction.
Yeah. That is very true. That could sort itself out.
Fair enough. Well, then I think we've crossed the 2-hour mark plenty of minutes ago. I wouldn't want to open another huge topic to delay the end. We should be reaching the conclusions. Do you want to... I think NeverSink, you already hyped people up for the upcoming filter, or for the changes that you already made to Filter Blade. Does anyone else want to plug some content? I know you have been uploading videos quite frequently, Dreamcore. Do you want to spoil an upcoming one, or you want to promote your current one?
I'm just uploading most days at the moment. Lots of like mechanics things, interactions with new items that are being added with old items. Just more of the same, really. If people like that sort of stuff, that's the kind of content that I make. The kind of content that I make is something that I wanted to see on YouTube before I started, and it's like less of, build guides. Here's how to play a character, and more of like, here's what you can do, and inspiring people to do that themselves and add those things to their build, or maybe create their own build. So if you like that sort of stuff, that's what I do over on my
I
YouTube
specifically channel. Like the idea of like your breakdowns of other people's race characters or race runs. That's always something that I felt there was a need to do that, and I thought, hey, maybe I'll do that, but then I'm not as much into the game as you are. Like I don't have the same level of understanding, and I'm a little bit have a different focus. So for me, it was too far away. But I'm glad you're doing it and that it works so well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like little details that get missed in those builds that because people often a lot of the time those people are not making full build guides. Like in the case of Quinn, for example, when he cleared 7 out of 7 this league, he didn't really have like a full build guide, and a lot of the small things that he was doing, like his bandit choice, for example, which was really important for his build, is lost in translation when people are just looking at the build. So it's a fun thing to do.
Just to point it out, I really appreciate your videos. Same with the videos from Sir Gog. You two are basically my favorite go-to PoE content creators, because I feel like you are providing these really valuable insights and analysis of the upcoming features and of new tech and of meta. So yeah, thank you so much. Those are awesome.
I appreciate that. Yeah, Sir Gog was actually inspiration for a lot of my videos when he did the unique series, like where he looked through endgame uniques and talked about those. That's a big inspiration for that. That's basically what I wanted to see more of that on YouTube. With all the new uniques and new mechanics coming out.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, great. Balor, what is your next video? Put you on the spot there.
We've got Poison SRS is good, which I'm putting out is actually better. If anything, it's been buffed, which I'm putting out tonight, but it won't be a full build guide until Wednesday. I actually joined the PoE Vault team, so I'm going to be making written guides there. So I'm also taking over the written guide, which Gazzy didn't have to give up at all. He was just nice enough to be like, well, you should take that, so at least you've got one to start with that's fully done. So thanks, Gazzy. Fantastic. Very helpful, because I'm learning the back end and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with it. So
to be fair, Gazzy probably has all his hands full with the amount of guides he's putting out, so he can give up one
that I just have to edit first gives me also a full one to look at when I'm writing new guides. That's going to help so much.
Yeah, template.
So there'll be a full build guide for Poison SRS again on Wednesday, I think. But it's better than it was. So fantastic. I thought it had been nerfed until Path of Building updated, and I got to play with it and make some changes and then be like, hang on, I've got more damage now.
Wait, without wanting to delay too much, but like what the melee damage multiplier on the SOS falling away doesn't affect the poison, or it does?
Oh no, it does. It lost 38% more damage because of that.
But then the necro buffs are so good that it makes up for more than what was lost.
Yes.
Unholy Might.
Crazy.
Well, it's a little bit of a knock-on effect. Unholy Might works 50% it ends up converting 50% of the minions. So you get a large chunk of extra chaos because now half of their base damage matters when it didn't before. It gives Wither for free, so now we can change weapons. That weapon gives you 60% chance to poison now, so now we can change jewels, and there's this like knock-on effect of, I gain 20% damage from this node, and then 6% more from changing this, and then 6% more from that jewel, and 8% more from this, and there was just this knock-on effect that ended up stronger. And we're like, all right, cool, we're good, let's go.
Sounds awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Then there's another thing coming up on Wednesday, not only your guide, but on Wednesday night in our usual time slot at 11 p.m. GMT, if I'm not mistaken. But the Linktree/Fated podcast should be updated. There should be a countdown timer. We will be talking with Snap. Snap's coming back to give us some League starter ideas and some strats and all that, and we'll be joined by Subtractem, first time appearance, so that's going to be great because those are, just like today, to people who are very analytically minded, very numbers driven, and have both invested countless of hours into theory crafting, build starters, and League start plans. So yeah, very much looking forward to pick their brains. And well, that's it. That's all we got for you today. So hope you had a wonderful time watching the podcast. If you want to watch it in full, you can always rewind on YouTube. It can also be found on Spotify and a number of other podcast platforms. And that's yeah, I announced the next one. Anyone want to have the last word before, while I find the outro thing?
Yeah, well, I'll take it. Thank you so much for inviting. It's been really fun. I'm really surprised how excited I am for this league. there's just so many things coming together. And I mean, been playing the leagues and PoE since closed beta, and it's still fun, and it's still pulling me back every 3 months. And now there's PoE 2 coming up. I know we didn't cover it this time, but there's still also, this is another really huge topic that's been, despite some hiccups here and there, I'm still super excited for that as well. So yeah, I would definitely hope. Yeah, I think it'll be an awesome league. Thank you so much.
Yeah, big shout out to GGG again, because we really feel like they gotten this back on track. There was some things that I really didn't like about the past leagues, or generally like the amount of changes that came, but I feel like this league, so many changes are spot on exactly what the game needs. And even, I say that almost every league, but even without a new league, I'd be super excited to just play Affliction again with all the endgame changes and like additional trees and all that. This time it's true for real. But yeah, bye guys. See you on Wednesday, and good luck. If we don't see you, then good luck with the league start, and definitely follow NeverSink, Dreamcore, Balor for the contents. Bye-bye.
I know a lot of people want to send blankets or water. Just send your cash.